If you're in Seattle, and you need to buy or sell a home, we'll be right there for you. Because we're the realtors that you can trust. So go to ronanddonsitdown.com.
You're listening to The Ron and Don Show on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Hey, you guys, what's going on? Welcome to another edition of the Ron and Don Show. Happy holidays. And we must be live in the Les Schwab studio.
What is up, Ron and Don Nation?
Hey, coming up on the Ron and Don Show, Rich is going to be here from Les Schwab, and you're going to be talking to Rich today. What are you guys talking about?
The toy drive is on right now. This is a chance where you can give back to our community all of these toys, and this is something Don and I love about our over a decade-long relationship with Les Schwab. The toys that we gather here in the Ron and Don Nation stay in your community. So if you're hearing us and you're in Kent, or you're in Lake Stevens, you're down in Vancouver, and you buy a toy and take it to Les Schwab, that toy is going to go to a family in your community, and we're going to talk about that toy drive, how long they've been doing it, how you can get involved, and this goes till now until December 15th.
We do have, I can't see on the live stream, 3 people listening in Japan. Do we have any Les Schwab Tire Centers in Japan? Can we keep the toys in Japan?
Just do your own thing if you're in Japan.
Yeah, we probably get them to the airbase out there.
Sure,
We did
absolutely.
Operation Airlift Japan. So Rich is going to be here. We also got to talk about tech kids, and I guess they're breaking up with AI chatbots. I was interested in this, so I went out to see if I could hook up with an AI chatbot last night.
I can't wait to hear how that
Yeah,
went.
so we're talking about that. Before we get to that, though, let's get to this. Another BuzzFeed. I love starting the show with a BuzzFeed. What is a BuzzFeed?
BuzzFeed just is a news aggregator, and they'll take stuff off of Reddit, or they don't have a ton of enterprise reporting, but they repackage stuff in a fun way.
Yeah, and people get to kind of comment on it. Here's the questions. Tell us about Americans as they're sharing their thoughts about perfectly normal things that they realize the rest of the world thinks otherwise. And this is when you're traveling around the country. Someone said the amount of sugar that's in our food here in America. Like all of our food contains sugar in some capacity. I work with foreign students every summer in high school, and they always wondered why our food was so sweet. I didn't realize this was the case until I traveled and I ate at restaurants outside the States. This is interesting. There are 2 guys online right now. When I saw this story and I started watching it, they're 2 guys from the UK. And what they do is they take food that they've never eaten before, and that are from the United States. And currently they're traveling around the United States eating stuff. So they decided to eat these things called Fruit Loops.
Okay.
They had never tried Fruit Loops before.
Yeah.
So they got out a box of Fruit Loops, and they're like, yeah, we can't have these in the UK because the food dye. Right. So they said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to try some of these Fruit Loops because Robert F. Kennedy has been talking about these Fruit Loops a lot, right, when it comes to health and human services. So they took out the Fruit Loops. And they started eating the Fruit Loops just out of the box. Then they started reading some of the stuff on the box, which they really liked. Then they were trying to figure out who the bird was on the front and see if they could find that bird somewhere in America. And then they added milk, and they started dancing around, singing a Fruit Loop song. And then as soon as the sugar hit, it took about 4 minutes, they went absolutely sideways. They absolutely love the Fruit Loops.
Of course.
They gave the Fruit Loops like a 20 out of 10, these guys from the UK. And they said, the bottom line is we can see why Americans love these things, but they also said we can see why Americans are so fat.
That's the thing I noticed from, traveling internationally to here. The sugar content is one, but the other thing is Americans are all about the quantity of food. And when you're in other parts of the world, you reference Japan or Europe, they're all about the quality. And so when you're eating in Italy or you're eating in Spain or eating in Japan, they would not ever, it never comes up of the quantity. The only thing they care about is what the quality of the food is. Whereas in America, all the time, and you and I have seen this, where someone's like, oh, you got to go check out restaurant X. You get so much food. It's incredible. And so it doesn't matter if it's good food or if it's healthy food or if the ingredients are good. It's that you get a good quantity of food.
Claim jumper.
Wow, you get so much food. And I've never heard that said when I'm traveling. Not once.
Yeah.
They've never said that.
My son did say when we were in Ireland together this past year, he did mention, and I didn't mention it to him, how the food tastes better to him. It tastes different.
Yeah.
I was able to get him to eat some vegetables that I have a hard time getting him to eat here. He'll eat vegetables like out of our garden, but those same vegetables, especially tomatoes. When you eat a tomato out of a garden and then you try to eat a store-bought tomato, that's not organic. Even the organic ones, it doesn't taste like a tomato. It tastes like something completely different. It's like a waste. It's a waste. You eat a tomato out of a store. It's like a waste of time of putting something in my mouth. So then you got to dive bomb it with ranch dressing, even to eat the thing and get it down. We'll get to ranch dressing here in a moment. So, but when you think Americans, when it comes to cattle and all that. The steak that we had over there, I've never eaten a piece of steak here like the steak that I had over there.
Yeah, it's all about quality.
It tasted so good. So this person said, I learned that root beer is something many people from other countries don't even like and don't even serve. Someone else said, the way we arrange our dates, month, day, year, most of the world arranges it day, month, year. I did notice that traveling because it did screw me up.
It does mess you up when you're like 22-4. What the heck is that?
Well, sometimes because you have to fill out forms. I know that I was filling out forms for like an insurance card, and I was just like, what is I? And I'm like, oh, I have it. The computer's not taking it because I have it out of order. The fact that Halloween as a holiday is so popular here with both kids and adults, people around the country don't give a or around the world. Also, when I moved to Japan, I was shocked that people would go to the doctor for a cold. To me, it was normal to avoid the hospital at all costs unless there was something really serious going on. And someone else said drug testing. I've worked various jobs since I was 13 years old. I never even heard about the concept of drug testing except for convicted felons coming back from detention. Then I worked in the U.S., and my boss was like, well, obviously, I'm going to have to drug test you before you can sort parcels. So.
The crazy thing is if you try to explain to people in another first world country around the world that our health insurance is tied to our job, you try to just explain that concept to someone, they're like, what do you mean? It's like when you're sick, you just go get health care. And like, no. So here's what you do. You get a job, and then 90 days later, you try to just explain the process to them. It totally does not compute.
Yeah.
And then you talk to them. It's like, well, what happens when you get health care? Like, well, I pay taxes and I just get health care.
And finally, here's a good point on taxes. They say, in the U.S., it's hard to figure out your taxes. What you owe, you don't know. Does the government? Well, kind of, yes. Will they just tell you? No. So what do you have to do? You have to go figure it out. And then when you get it wrong, you're in trouble. And then financially, you're going to owe more now than your taxes because now all the penalties on top of the taxes. So, yeah, anyway. Hey, you guys, don't go anywhere. Coming up, we're going to talk about Tech Kids. And then we also have to talk about the Les Schwab Toy Drive. Don't forget, you can stop by any Les Schwab tire store right now. If you're looking for a toy, stop by Fred Meyer. They're also taking cash donations. And
they are. You can go to Les Schwab's website or just search Les Schwab Toy Drive, and the link will come up for you.
Yeah, more in a minute on the other side of this. Hey, you guys, Ron and Don here for Les Schwab. It is our favorite time of year. In fact, everyone at Les Schwab, this is their favorite time of year. It's time to give the gift of joy and join Les Schwab in creating a little holiday magic for all our local kids. Through Les Schwab's Toy Drive, your generosity helps local kids who might otherwise go without the feel of joy this holiday season, Ron. It's so important to the men and women that work in every Les Schwab store, isn't it?
Yeah, this has been going on for 30 years. Les Schwab has partnered with everyone in the community right here in Seattle to brighten the holidays. And so when we all come in, you can bring an unwrapped toy, take it right to your local Les Schwab. You can also donate cash for them to use buying power to buy toys so that every child gets a toy this holiday season. Donate a new unwrapped toy at your neighborhood Les Schwab today until December 15th. It's the Les Schwab Toy Drive now through December 15th.
Don't forget, you get more with less.
If you have a friend that is ready to start their real estate journey, send them to ronanddonsitdown.com.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. And I think we live in a very interesting age. You think about this, the world has been around billions of years, and I always bring this up, that we're kind of the only era of people that have known a band like Metallica on a record player. You've known them on an 8-track. Maybe you've known them on a cassette. You've known them on a CD. And now you know them in the streaming era, right? And for our generation, we grew up. When is the first time you were introduced to computers? I remember studying, I think, BASIC and Fortran when I was like 6th, 7th, 8th grade, but nobody really knew what it meant. When did you start?
I have a clear memory of a junior high being getting in front of an Apple IIe.
Is that right?
And I actually did. No, actually, before that, I had a Commodore 64 at my house.
You did.
And would program. I learned BASIC, and I could write a program, a basic program, of like, hey, input your name, or a little quiz, or adding up math. And I would do that for hours and hours. Then went to school, had an Apple IIe, and did like a vector graphics little game. I was a total computer nerdy kid back then. Yeah,
but you weren't, you're a computer nerdy kid to a degree, but you weren't carrying the computer around in your pocket, right? And I had no idea, no clue where computers one day would take us when I was 15, 16, 17 years old. When did you realize that computers, because you were into them much more than I, and you're 3 years younger. When did you realize that computers were going to be a game changer? And was it when Al Gore came out and tried to own and explain the internet?
I think that the first time I had a modem, and I remember used to get. Okay, kids, back in the day, there was a thing called magazines, which were like a website on print. Yeah. And then inside the magazine was a floppy disk, which is like a CD with less memory. And you would get an AOL account. You could take this thing, put it in your computer. Crazy. And you had to. I remember going at Totem Lake, used to have a computer store where that mall is now, and buying a modem. And I went from a 14.4 modem, and I was going to crush it with a 56K modem. I went straight over the 28.8, went right to the 56K, and I had to buy it at the computer store, install it in the house I was living in Kirkland. And you installed all the drivers and all the cables, and then I could get online, and an image. A graphic image could completely load in about 25 to 30 seconds. Yeah. And I was on the cutting edge of technology. Yeah. That's when I knew. I was like, hey, I am pulling up an image from the other side of the world right now.
Yeah. And then I remember I called you. I think we're in our early 20s. This would be early 90s, and I called you.
1890.
And I said, hey, I got an idea, because I always have ideas. And Ron and I have done everything from throwing newspapers together to cleaning carpets together, selling cars together. I go, I've seen this guy on late night television. And he said, all we got to do is come up with a book. And if we can come up with a book, and we'll put out little ads in little periodicals.
The Thrifty Nickel.
Yeah. We could make. Was the name of our book How to Make $100 a Day, or How to Make I think it was How to Make $100 an Hour, right? And on your home computer, which I didn't even have a home computer at the time, but you did. And so we wrote this book about how to make $100 an hour on your home computer, which we hadn't really done yet. But what we were trying to do is make $100 an hour by selling that book, right?
Correct. It's very meta.
What we were doing. How many? And you were the computer guy. I was not. How many books did we end up selling?
Well, we actually did create the book.
Yeah,
it did have some ideas in it that may have worked. I think we sold like 2 books.
I think we took.
So I don't know if we ever got to $100. But you know what? Those things I don't regret doing, because they all feed into like. The spirit of being an entrepreneur. Yeah. You learn stuff by it. Like we learned how to place ads. You learn how to, do a lot of those things. And we never did a scam. Like you always had an actual product. Like there's a lot of people that do those things that never actually delivered anything. So we had deliverables. It may not have been the greatest thing in the world, but it was an attempt to make something. And I've done many things like that over my life, and you only need one of them to hit.
Well, we learned how to market ourselves in the car company, selling cars, and cleaning carpets. You have to get all that stuff, even getting customers, newspapers, taking care of folks. All that stuff teaches you how to market. And that's what radio is and was. It's just marketing yourself. And it is more about that. People are like, oh, I bet you're great on radio. You have an amazing voice. It's not so much about your voice as it is about creating something that you can sell and that a radio company at that time could package and go out and market it. And so for us, it how to make that $100 an hour. It was kind of the introduction to the computer. And then I think there's something called Pro Tools, which really revolutionized radio. And Pro Tools wasn't that created by somebody here?
No, you're thinking of a different thing. But Pro Tools was a major development in audio editing. There was a piece of software invented by Charlie Brown on the Charlie Ty and Mary show. There was a very basic audio editor for radio, and I forget the name of the software, but that was he made a lot of money on that. But it was where you could take a phone call, you'd have the phone caller and the DJ on two separate tracks, you could edit it quickly and put it back on the radio within a couple minutes, and that was editing.
Yeah, and that's when we really started computers changing our lives, right? But we were older men now, and now I'm always thinking about, and we're back to the story now about teens and having a screen. And somebody was telling me the other day, I asked them, I said, hey, our sons are wrestling all week. They just got done playing football all week, and then they come home. The good thing is we always talk about they're too tired to get on their screens. Screens, though, are very incorporated at school, so they're on screens a lot. You don't see kids carrying backpacks with books in them anymore. They're backpacks with computers, so everything's a screen everywhere they go. They order lunch, they're doing that on a screen. They want to buy something online, they're doing that. Everything is on a screen. You get in the car, you see a screen. Screens are everywhere. They're a generation now that has grown up with just the screen. We're a generation that grew up with no screens, and now we have a screen, right? So you're as a parent, you're trying to parent in an area that you always don't understand. And now we pivot to AI, which is something that he really understands. And I was asking him one day about his friends and having chatbot friends and do that. And even with young boys sometimes, they'll go out and get a chatbot girlfriend, as we talked about, so they can practice learning what it's like to be a boyfriend to someone or how to have a communication. And I guess what's happening with some of these kids and adults too is they consider these chatbots now to be real friends or to be a real girlfriend or a real person. And this article was actually in the Wall Street Journal. It says teens are saying tearful goodbyes now to their AI companions. These are kids that always grew up with screens, unlike us. It says chatbot maker Character AI is cutting off access to these kids and these chatbots, citing mental health concerns. Teens are distraught, saying that I have cried over it for days. We don't see tech a lot of times step in and police themselves. Why are they policing themselves in this situation?
Because two young people committed suicide or took their own lives while involved in these lengthy chatbot sessions. And I think the thing, if you're our age, that you might not realize is this particular AI, Character.ai, you would build sort of your fantasy if you want. And literally it could be from a fantasy movie. Like it could be an alien, it could be an animal, it can be the specific type of person that you want them to look like, whatever characteristics, hair color, eye color, body shape, etc. So you would go out and literally construct this character, and then as you interact with it, it begins to know and remember you. And so you could say, hey, your birthday's next week. Happy birthday. And so throughout the day, I know you have a test next week in math. How'd you do in the test? And you're developing, because you're feeding it information and it remembers these things. It's a computer. That's what it does. And so the chat bot begins to morph into this thing that you rely on, and stuff that you're embarrassed to talk about with your mom and dad or your other friends, you can talk about with the chatbot because you know that it's private and it's going to respond to you and not judge you. And so, you talk about insecurities, about how you feel about a crush at school, or how you feel about your weight, or maybe your body's developing for the first time. And that's a very powerful thing to have a trusted companion that's right there that you can go to at any time, and they're always going to be positive for the most part, except when we got into these things with the suicides. For the most part, they're going to echo the tone and tenor that you're putting into it.
What do you think the benefit of having a chatbot is? Do you think if someone's 80 years old and they're lonely and they're shut in, or you're stuck in a wheelchair, or do you
I think if you set up your AI to be honest with you, like, so I use ChatGPT, and there's a section in your settings where you can set up global things for your AI. So like my global settings say, hey, I only want you to use verifiable information. I don't want you, because there are some hallucinations that AI has and some false studies and things. So it's like when I ask you a question, I want you to always use, if you can use a scientific peer-reviewed study, do that first. If that doesn't exist, use a reliable source over an unreliable source. And so when I'm seeking information, do not use AI hallucinations. So that's a global setting that goes across all of my queries in the AI. So if you set this thing up, and I'm going to go in there and also tweak this to say, don't always agree with me. If I give you, if I'm going down a thread or a chat, and I'm veering off of real facts, question me, like bring me back, like, so you can set these global things up. And if you don't do that, though, depending on the AI that you're using, the default setting could be to always agree with you and to reinforce the things that you're saying. And there have been examples of someone that, like, they've been in a chat bot for a marathon session, or maybe they're on substance, or they're having a mental issue, or they believe that they're inventing a new branch of mathematics, and their chat bot is reinforcing that and saying, yeah, you're a genius, and this is new, and nobody's ever thought of this before, because the default setting was to be sort of a yes and character. And so I think if you set up the guardrails such that as you go through, that can be hugely beneficial. So you can have a young person that feels angry, like we all felt angry for a period. If I have someone I can go to that's going to be honest and truthful and say, hey, I'm really pissed at my mom and dad right now, and here's what happened. And they can go, hey, I hear you, but did you think about this? Where they're not just going to grandstand with you, but they're going to give you real therapeutic advice. I think it could be hugely important. But the guardrails right now are made up by the individual provider.
Yep.
That's the part that's dangerous in our current setting, is they are optimizing for profit or for user engagement, not necessarily for verifiable facts.
How do you use it, and how do you find it being beneficial? I use it because, like last night, I could never really figure out why we have a base in Guantanamo Bay. It's always bothered me. Why do we have a base there? And then I wanted to understand the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Everything goes back to war.
It always does, yeah. So I went back. I had to go back to the 1800s, and I won't go into it with Guantanamo Bay, and then the Cuban Missile Crisis, because that is kind of interesting. What are we doing with a base in Cuba, right? And then what happened in 1960, 1961, 1962? No, the base was there before communism. Yeah, it was there. It was there before communism.
The sugar plantation owners.
No, you know what? Ask your chatbot.
Hey, maybe I can ask someone that's been to Cuba. This guy right here.
Yeah. What do you? So when I'm reading history, and like last night, I said, give me 5 essays that I can read that are verifiable. And so it gave me some great essays, and one I was reading from Smithsonian, which makes me sound smarter than I am. And I learned a ton. So, and if I tried to do that on my own, it doesn't aggregate it that quickly. And then
it's very valuable. The large language model is interesting in that way. I've done some stuff, and I was talking to Matt off the mic about this recently. I took all of this 2025, all of my statements from the account that I trade options and stocks in, and I printed the PDFs, put them into my AI, took the spreadsheet that I do, put it into my AI. I said, here's all of my activity for 2025. Tell me the patterns that you see. Look for some mistakes that I'm making. Where is my logic good and where's my logic bad? And how could I do better? And I just upload it, hit it. It takes about 5 minutes to analyze everything. And then it comes back with a thing where it says, you're doing great here. You're doing, maybe think about this there. And then I said, what could I do? What's a different thing that I can do other than I'm doing right now?
Interesting.
And so then it gave me a couple of ideas. Why don't you try this and why don't you try that? And then now I can just go back to it and say, hey, show me this week how I could do this thing that we've talked about. And it will spit it back at me, and I can go through and analyze my performance on that of stuff that maybe I didn't see before.
Yeah. I'm wondering when like at my son's high school, when we'll see a class just on AI, for instance, and how to use
it.
AI.
Might have one right now.
And they don't. No, I looked into that. Just how to use it and how to make your life better, right? Yeah, that's really cool. Interesting. Hey, you guys don't go anywhere. You're coming up. You're going to talk to Rich from Les Schwab.
Yeah, the toy drive is on right now with Les Schwab, and you're going to hear all about it next.
Thanks for being a part of the Ron and Don Nation. Subscribe to the Nation News at ronanddonsitdown.com. A behind-the-scenes look at everything Ron and Don.
Hey, welcome back to the Ron and Don Show. I am pleased to be sitting across from Rich Ballman from Les Schwab in the Les Schwab studios because it is the time of year, one of the things I love the most, and that is giving toys. Whoa. Oh, good catch out of me. Giving toys. That's a kid. So welcome to the show, Rich.
Thank you. Yeah.
So let's start things out because I grew up in a family where my dad was a salesman for automobile parts. And so how long have you been working at Les Schwab?
Well, it'll be, it's 38 years in last September.
Okay, 38 years, and you started down in Oregon, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what was it like 38 years? This is pre-internet, pre-cell phone, maybe even pre-personal computer. I don't know. What was it like as a 17-year-old selling tires in Oregon 38 years ago?
I think looking back, maybe it felt easier, without everything being tech-driven. A lot has changed in the industry, Not much is the same.
At the time, did you think this is going to be my career, or is this going to be a summer job, or I'll sling some tires for a year and then figure it out?
It didn't take me long to sink into the culture of the company and the DNA and understand the opportunity that was available to me if I wanted it. And I made that decision to stick it out pretty quick. And I never questioned it once, ever.
I have a clear recollection. My dad would take me to work with him every once in a while, and we would take out a clipboard and look at the tires, and you would write down the ones you needed. Mm-hmm. Then he'd go back and put in a typewriter. He would type it up on a form and mail it to the, snail mail. Mail it to the head office, and they would shoot. It's crazy to think about what's just changed in the industry in 38 years. To me, it's amazing that happened.
When I first started, we had just switched over to a computer system to manage inventory. It didn't invoice customers, and that didn't happen until the early 90s, about 93.
But you still know how to rock the DOS system if you need to.
But the DOS is still, I'm still all about F3 and F5 and F11. So it was very manual. We managed all inventory manually. Every time you sold a product, you had to go to your Cardex system and write down that you sold the product. So then when you went in there during order day, you know to order more.
So for a lot of people, Rich, Les Schwab is a brand. They drive by the store in Monroe or in Lake Stevens or wherever, and they see the sign. But Les Schwab was actually a human being. Tell us a little bit about Les Schwab.
Yeah, Les was a phenomenal human being. Created a system and a process for business that he prided himself in was sharing with people and creating business partnerships and relationships through sharing. created a very generous rewards program for employees that allowed them to become a business partner, essentially in the business, without putting the down payment on the partnership like you typically would in business. All built on the backs of trust and hard work and dedication and loyalty. And Les gave us a lot, but he also expected a lot. And you were happy to give what was expected, and we still are today.
And so I guess to frame up this toy drive, I'm trying to think. 38 years ago in the Pacific Northwest, in Oregon and Washington, it is not the Oregon and Washington we know today. And so Les's desire to connect and give back to the community, can you speak to that a little bit? Because it was very different times when I think this spirit of connection to the community started to bubble up.
Yeah, I think Les discovered very early on in business that giving back to the community was the right thing to do. And it got done in many different ways, and they're a little bit different now.
Right.
One of our most popular ways that Les would give back then was what we called the free beef campaign.
Yeah.
And people still reference
I remember
it
his
today.
cowboy hat. He had his cowboy hat on and the beef.
It was very memorable. And that was part of giving back because he wanted to support the ranchers and farmers during their slow times in the winter months. And he was going to do it through his business and giving that to as a reward to customers.
Yeah.
And so that tradition is really carried forward, turned into many different ways of giving. But Les Schwab, our founder, was very passionate about supporting the communities in which you live and work. It's part of our DNA,
of course,
at Les Schwab, and something that we're very proud of.
So fast forward a couple years into your tenure, you're rising through the ranks. You start to manage stores, and then this idea of toys in the community. This may not be the origin story, but in my mind, it makes sense. For many people, they have to have their car to make money for their family. I can imagine there's a lot of scenarios where someone, like they got to get new tires, and they're choosing maybe between tires and toys that year, or tires and they got to cut back on food that month, or tires and like, wow, I don't know if I can pay my electric bill, but if I don't get new tires, I can't go to work. And so as a store manager, you saw people every single day in and day out. Like, you knew the community because they literally came into the store. Is that too far of a stretch?
No, it's exactly how it was. And during those times, the families that were unable to maybe afford what they needed at the time, Les created a credit program and self-financed his customers, which we still do to this day.
Wow. Now let's talk about the introduction of the toy drive. And Don and I have seen this over the years too. It's super easy to forget when you're doing okay, even if you're struggling a little bit. For people like you and me, it's really easy to forget and go, oh, I've got a Thanksgiving and I got to go get the turkey. And then we're going to see the family's coming in town. And next thing you know, it's the middle of January and it's just gone by. It's super easy to forget that for many people, many people right now in our community, there may be zero toys. And those kids, I always think about this. It's not those kids' fault. They didn't choose the family they were born into. They didn't choose the situation. And they see all of their schoolmates, all of their friends getting toys and toys and toys. And they're sitting there going, I don't know if we're getting any toys this year.
Yeah.
And tell us how this thing developed within Les Schwab.
First thing, if you're going to be giving back to your community, what better thing to give to than youth, our future, right? And how can we support them? And those things, it's what Don mentioned about Dave Ross's quote, which is couldn't be more true. It validates them, right? They feel seen, they feel special, and it's oddly, it doesn't take much other than someone. It's like through the toy, they feel the human effort that went into that, and they feel validated for it.
Sure.
And it's really special. So over time, obviously, the toy drive just began to grow. It started out on a community level with just our store managers, as we have done for years and years and years, reaching out to help their community, usually through the Chamber of Commerce, maybe a local church or entity of some sort, and just giving their best effort. And we had this big idea: hey, where can we make the biggest impact? Why don't we bring all this together?
Sure.
and make this do as much as we can to make as big a difference as we can.
So I got to ask you why you guys took it all on. And the toy drive from Les Schwab, brought to you by Fox 13 Seattle. A lot of big companies just piggyback on someone else. They will jump on something that's already going and sort of lend their name to it. And maybe it's, you know, all the brands and all the charities, and you'll see people, hey, here's our oversized check. Or we're going to partner with you for a week. You guys took this on as a project for hundreds of stores. You didn't have to do that. You could have sent a check to someone else and Rich is standing there with the oversized check and patted yourself on the back. Why take on this project?
Yeah, it's special to us. It's personal, right? Giving back to our community.
Yeah.
We're fortunate to have the locations we have. It provides a lot of things. It provides an avenue for consumers to easily get to one of those places. Mm-hmm. We have phenomenal people, employees in those locations. Our store management teams work very hard, and their people work very hard every day. And so we can do the heavy lifting on almost anything. And so it only made sense to us that, hey, the steps, if you look at what this toy drive looks like from start to finish and the amount of effort that it takes to put into this, the hours and the physical labor, it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
It really is.
Right.
And
but
you know
no
what?
one signs on going, I want part of my job description to be to pick out toys for 11-year-old girls. But that just becomes part of the culture.
Yeah. But going the extra mile, doing the right thing is what we've been about, what we're always going to be about. And that's one way that we could, that's our fuel, right? Doing the right thing, is our fuel. And that motivates our store managers to just keep that going.
Let's talk about two lanes here because I find the appeal in both of them. And let's do sort of the more analytical one first. Cash money. So I have a very, very clear recollection of you pulling up, I think it was a 24-foot Les Schwab panel truck years ago, and we were out in front of a Les Schwab, and you slung the door open in the back, and there were dozens and dozens of bicycles and tricycles and everything. And you're like, hey, when people give cash, we can leverage that cash to get a better price. When you're buying 50 bicycles, you get a better deal than if you're buying one bicycle. So talk about cash and how you guys leverage the cash, how people can give in cash.
Yeah, we accept cash at the stores. All of our stores are set up to take cash and to make sure that it gets back to your community. We've actually even created different SKUs. So when you give in Clallam County, that Clallam County SKU is used, and that money is going back to Clallam County.
Right.
So, and then partnering with the nonprofits that we've chose to partner with, they have phenomenal avenues on purchasing, and then we have great avenues at the same, and then providing the labor. I don't know if you've seen what 200 bicycles looks like in the back of a rig that aren't put together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there takes a lot of labor sometimes to do that. And that's happening all over Les Schwab country.
Right.
Here in Western Washington, much of the same. But that cash will go a long ways. And we make sure that it gets to the right place and it gets to the kids.
And the cool thing about the cash is that if there is a sort of a gap in ages or genders or in the county, then you can deploy that to say, hey guys, we're short in this age category.
Yeah. Don brought that up yesterday. I don't think we really properly answered the question. But yeah, there is a challenge. It's those teenage years. Sometimes they are the ones that miss out because it's not quite as easy to go find something for a teenager.
Right.
And so that's a little tough sometimes. We have made some significant effort though to determine what those items are. And I know, I mean, it's really special when you can go buy a toy, take it to the store, and that's the whole experience. But, we still do have the Amazon wish list available,
sure.
Right? It can be found at Fox 13 Seattle /toy drive. There's an Amazon wish list. That wish list specifically points out by age range some things that would be appropriate for the toy drive.
So let's talk about the other thing, and it's the one that I'm going to do this year, is take your own kids, take your family, and let's go to the toy store and buy some toys and drop them off. I think when you do it together and you drop it off together, there's a magic in that.
There is.
So tell us how that works. Wait, we're looking for new unwrapped toys.
Yeah. For me, it's parenting 101.
Right.
You know, I mean, what better way to teach your kids what it feels like to give back to the folks that need the help and assistance.
And
right?
so what should people do if they're out and about, they're already shopping? Can I go to any Les Schwab store?
Yeah, any Les Schwab store in Western Washington. Just drive in. You can drive right up to a bay, honk your horn, get our attention, whatever you need to do. A lot of folks choose to come into the store because they want to actually associate that toy where it's going, that it got to where it needed to be. And we welcome that. You know, grab a cup of coffee and maybe a bag of popcorn, help yourself. And, but yeah, whatever works for you, we're happy to help.
And then Don teased it yesterday, so I have to ask it. Do you have one memory over your 20 years of doing the toy drive that you sort of think about when the toy drive comes to mind?
I do. During this event every year, you experience some pretty interesting things, right? And there's a lot of stories in the world, but not all of them are great stories, you know. And it's been many years now, though. I was in the store one night. It's like the last couple of days. The rain was coming down. It was horrible. And it's dark, and it's probably 5 o'clock. And a gentleman comes in, and he's soaking wet. And I realized that his bike that he rode in on is leaned up against the building. And he literally stopped by to get a cup of coffee because he knew that he'd be welcomed. And that's all that he was there. When he was there, he inquired about what the toys were for under the tree. And so I had mentioned to him what we were doing, what it was about. And he said, oh, okay, great. Well, I didn't think much of it. I think he had a couple of cups of coffee. He leaves the store on his bicycle. Still raining, horrible, on Highway 2 of all things.
Wow.
Up in Monroe.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, probably, 45 minutes to an hour later, right at closing, here he comes rolling back in on his bicycle. And he is absolutely drenched, right? And he went over to the Fred Meyer.
Yeah.
He bought a big backpack. In fact, I think he might have bought 2 of them. He stuffed as many toys as he could in those backpacks. And he brought those back.
Wow.
To donate to the toy drive. And he himself looked like he could use some assistance in life.
Sure.
So it was a powerful moment. But we see things like that all the time.
That is a powerful
It brings
moment.
out, this is one of the phenomenal things about this time of year and this specific event is it really, you get the opportunity to see the best in humanity.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So it's every single Les Schwab location. They're also doing a couple special events around. You can go to the website and look for Fred Meyer's. There's some football games coming up, some basketball games coming up. You're going to see the Les Schwab and the Fox 13 Seattle logos with the toy drive at a lot of places here. December 15th is our deadline, so we need to get on this quickly.
Yeah. Every one of those events, too, we will have people there to help. So we're not just represented with a box in the aisle, but we'll actually have people there staffed outside of Fred Meyer. Two different dates, 17 stores throughout Western Washington. Not every one of them. So if you're curious, you may look at Fox 13 Seattle /toy drive, and the locations are posted there.
All right, so go to the websites, Fox 13 Seattle. You can go to Les Schwab website, just search for Toy Drive. You can find all that. Rich, it's a great pleasure to have you in again this year.
Hey, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for your
welcome.
support over the years.
It's more than our pleasure. That's it for the Ron and Don Show this episode. You can find us at ronanddonsitdown.com. You can hit me directly at ron@ronanddon.com. And Don says something like head up, shoulders back, only, yells and screams, but
Ole!
I don't know how to do all that.
On the Ron and Don Radio Network.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Ron and Don Show. Please hit subscribe.